This is Behind the Headlines, with behind-the-scenes analysis on issues affecting Pennsylvanians, sponsored by the Susquehanna Valley Center for Public Policy. Now, here's your host.
Hi, from Philadelphia to Erie and from Scranton to Pittsburgh, it's Behind the Headlines. Hi, I'm Charlie Greenwald, Senior Fellow of the Susquehanna Valley Center for Public Policy, and I'm joined, as usual, by my co-host, Maura Donnelly. Maura, I haven't seen you for a while.
It's been ages, Charlie. It's great to see you.
Oh,
great
thank you.
Back.
It's nice to be here after 5 operations.
Oh, my goodness.
I feel like the Bionic Man.
That's quite the assignment you were on.
Oh, well, it's nice to be back. It really is. It's
well,
good
I've
to
missed
see you.
So it's
And
nice
I
to have you back.
know you've handled everything well in my absence. And today we have a wonderful guest to start the program off with in Senator Joe Pittman from the 41st Senatorial Region of Central Pennsylvania. Senator, welcome to the show.
It's good to be here. I appreciate you having me.
Senator, could you tell our viewers a little bit about you, about your background? Just briefly, where you're from, where you went to school, and how you got in politics, and what you're doing on Capitol Hill.
Sure. The district I represent currently is all of Armstrong and Indiana counties, as well as a portion of Butler and Westmoreland counties. So I'm located in western PA, about an hour northeast of Pittsburgh. I live in Indiana Borough with my wife and 4 children. I'm a native of Indiana County. I graduated from Purchase Line High School and attended Penn State University as a student of political science. And then I worked for State Senator Don White as his chief of staff for 19 years. And then when he retired in February of 2019, I was elected in a special election in May of 2019, and then was reelected in November of 2020 to a full 4-year term. So I'm fairly new to the office, but I'm pretty familiar with the workings of
Well,
this,
19 years
yes.
in the office, I think it was a great apprenticeship.
It very much was, yes. And prior to that, I worked for Senator Bob Jubileer, who I understand we have some commonality with.
Yes,
So,
I think we do.
yeah.
The things that you're working on the Hill right now, for example, what are your committee assignments right now?
Well, I currently serve as chair of the Urban Affairs and Housing Committee, which for a rural district is actually pretty applicable in that a lot of what we work on is blight issues, land banks, areas where you have declining population and you need to mitigate blighted areas and communities. Those are some of the priorities of that committee, but I also serve as vice chair of the Environmental Resources and Energy Committee. I'm also on appropriations, banking and insurance, consumer protection, and professional licensure. So those are the committees and Judiciary Committee. So those are the committees that tend to be my focus.
So you're right in the thick of a very big environmental issue then, aren't you?
Yes.
Affectionately referred to as Reggie.
Yes, Reggie, yes. That has been, candidly, for almost my entire time in office. In October of 2019, the governor issued an executive order commissioning the Department of Environmental Protection to unilaterally proceed in having Pennsylvania join a multi-state consortium known as the Regional Greenhouse Gas Initiative. The end result of it is essentially to tax power plants that emit carbon. It would require every power plant that emits carbon to produce electricity to pay a tax for every ton of carbon they emit. Now keep in mind, carbon is what we are all exhaling right now. And so the district I represent is home to 3 coal-fired power plants, a waste coal power plant, and a natural gas plant. We have the capacity to produce about 6,000 megawatts of electricity just in the district that I represent. And so this is a significant issue. We can go into a lot of reasons why entering this is bad. It's gotten a lot of headlines out of Virginia because Virginia was the last state to join the Regional Greenhouse Gas Initiative, and now the new governor, Governor Youngkin, is trying to remove them from it. But it has vast implications to our economic well-being here in the Commonwealth. And if you look at the events of Europe over the last several weeks, what you see is how energy independence and national security go hand in hand. And so it's a critical issue and one that we continue to fight, and I think it's a fight that we must pursue till the very end. We can't let the governor do this.
Even before we talk about that aspect of the situation, which I think is very important, the government teacher in me makes me, go back to the element that we talked about last time. We talked about this topic on our show. This is not a topic that's new to us. We have touched on this before in the past, and Maura and I were bemoaning the fact that, my goodness, here you have the governor just unilaterally saying that he's going to have us join this without legislative approval, and this entails a tax. So he is imposing a tax on us unilaterally. The executive does not have the power of taxation. That must go through the legislature. What is so hard for Governor Wolf to understand that?
Charlie, you're absolutely right. If the governor gets his way, we would be the only state in the Regional Greenhouse Gas Initiative that entered without legislative authorization. The only one. And it is abundantly clear that this is a tax. They refer to it as a price, they refer to it as a fee and all of that, but at the end of the day, there is a clear difference between a fee and a tax. And by the DEP Secretary's own admission, the administration of RGGI is only about $1 million cost. Well, the governor's proposed budget has a line item of $410 million of revenue coming from RGGI. So it clearly is generating revenue well beyond the cost of administering the program. And at the end of the day, that $410 million will be paid by the consumers of electricity in this Commonwealth. The only way this tax is generated is if carbon-emitting sources of electricity, which are coal and natural gas plants, pay this tax, and they will pass it on to the consumer.
I know you're in the middle of taking multiple steps, probably multiple pronged steps, to try to reverse this and stop this. So tell us a little bit about the Independent Fiscal Office and what just tell us everything that's happening in the process at this point.
Yeah, there are many things going on in the process. We continue to go through the regulatory review process, which allows the Senate and House to pass disapproval resolutions, which we have done. Of course, the governor has vetoed it. However,
Shocking.
Shocking, yes. But we in the Senate do have an opportunity to put it up for an override vote. And until we put that vote up, if we're unsuccessful, he cannot publish the regulation. Now, interestingly, he has actually taken the track of taking what's known as the Legislative Reference Bureau to court to try to push them to publish the rule before we fully exercise our authority. So
Again,
that is now in Commonwealth Court.
Yeah.
Did you ever hear of that occurring before?
It's stunning to me because I'm not a lawyer, but we've been around long enough to know that when you say a concurrent resolution, it means one resolution identically passed by both chambers.
Yes.
And he is now taking liberties with the words of the Regulatory Review Act to try to say, well, we didn't do it right, so it should be published immediately. And so now we're in Commonwealth Court.
And when you
at
say
his
publish
choosing.
immediately, that means it goes into effect.
Absolutely.
Yeah, let's
That-
make sure our
Yeah.
viewers understand that. That's
Yes.
significant.
Yes,
Yeah.
if we do not come to terms on this and he gets his way, it could go into effect in April, as early as April. But I think beyond what the governor is now putting into court, I mean, we clearly are going to pursue legal action if he continues down this path, because as we've talked, this is a tax. It's an unconstitutional tax because he's attempting to implement it unilaterally.
Isn't it true, Senator, that if this goes into effect, it would cost our state economy $7.7 billion? Those are the estimates. I don't know. Are there newer estimates, Senator?
Those are the today estimates, and what we can't estimate is what it's doing to future development prospects. Because as I said, the coal-fired power plants that I represent, they will shutter almost immediately because they will be uncompetitive in this market. And so our natural gas plants will bear the cost of this rule, and it's going to have a chilling effect on future development. We need a diverse power grid. And what I don't think the general public understands is that we're part of a 13-state power grid known as the PJM. So our electricity can come from anywhere in that grid. And if you're looking to build a new natural gas plant, and you're looking at Pennsylvania versus Ohio and West Virginia, you're obviously going to go to Ohio and West Virginia because it now will be cheaper to produce electricity in those states. And guess what? The carbon they emit comes right here. It
coming
goes
our
into
way.
the globe.
Yeah.
And so there's this issue with RGGI known as leakage, which means the power that we are producing will simply be shifted to other states that aren't part of RGGI. I mean, it's economics 101. And the environmental impact of this is negligible. Estimates are, I think, even by Penn State standards, that it's 0.03% of a reduction in carbon emissions in
So-
Pennsylvania.
So what you're saying then is that there's really no return on investment in terms of the state. You're not going to get out of it what you really need to do if you want to reduce carbon emissions.
No, because the fallacy of all of this, I mean, the governor says to me, well, when we get this $410 million, we'll come into your communities and fix them. Well, the irony is, you don't get $410 million unless you continue to emit carbon.
Yeah, if you put everybody out of business,
Right.
there's no carbon.
So I refer to it as monopoly money.
Yeah.
Well, isn't the governor wrong also about the cost of this initiative, that he is wrong, he's undercut it by 4 times. Could you explain that
Well, what has happened is,
with the short?
the governor's effort,
John?
as we said, is over 2 years old in trying to get us into this. And DEP, as they've built the regulation, modeled the cost. And when they began the modeling, it was $5 a ton for every ton of carbon. Well, now in the RGGI scheme, the auctions are at $13, $14 a ton. So his modeling is completely out of date.
Oh, is anybody going to do any new modeling?
Well, the Independent Fiscal Office,
Okay.
Senator
They're the
Udicek and
ones-
Senator Yaw have made that request. Yes.
That's wonderful.
Yes.
When will we know what will happen with that request?
Well, I think that will hopefully be brought forward within a matter of weeks.
Oh, good.
Is our hope.
Oh, Senator, we want to have you back very soon to
Yeah.
bring us up to date on this.
Well-
because this could have such a great impact on Pennsylvania's economy and on people's lives, particularly in your district, among others.
It's monumental, and your viewers should make every effort to reach out to their legislators and let them know that they don't need to pay more for electricity. And that's what this will do.
Thank you very much for being with us, Senator.
Thank you.
We'll be right back after this break.
Behind the Headlines is brought to you as a public service by the Pennsylvania State Association of Township Supervisors, the largest, most influential municipal association in the Commonwealth. Since 1921, PSATS has been preserving and strengthening township government and securing greater visibility and involvement for townships in the state and federal political arenas. Covering 95% of Pennsylvania's land mass, townships represent 5.5 million residents, more than any other type of political subdivision in Pennsylvania. Additional underwriting provided by the Worrell Corporation Foundation, based in Carlisle, Pennsylvania, by the Edward H. and Jeannie Arnold Foundation, and by the Pennsylvania Manufacturers Association. Business in Pennsylvania is our business. Behind the Headlines is also supported as a public service by the Pennsylvania Highway Information Association, the go-to source to learn about transportation projects and issues. Visit pahighwayinfo.org.
Hi, welcome back to Behind the Headlines. On this segment, Maura and I are lucky enough to welcome back Bob Latham to our show. Bob is the Executive Vice President of the Associated Constructors of Pennsylvania. And we have new developments, Bob, I believe, to talk about in infrastructure funding and the budget in Pennsylvania. Could you tell Maura and I a little bit about the new developments? You've been keeping us up to date on this for some time in regard to infrastructure funding and state police funding.
Well, sure, Charlie and Maura, good to be with you as always.
Nice to see you.
Nice to be with you.
My pleasure. Yeah, there's a lot happening in transportation these days, both good and bad, but some of the things that we're going to push through. Of course, recently in Pennsylvania, we had an unfortunate occurrence in Pittsburgh where we had a bridge collapse in the city of Pittsburgh, and this is something that is a very, very rare occurrence. But something obviously we take very seriously, and it's somewhat of we think, a clarion call to look at infrastructure investment and exactly what we're doing there, and whether we're properly investing in rebuilding our roads and bridges. Now, let me
We
just
have to stop you right there and ask you, so the general public, our viewers,
Sure.
will know, was anyone killed in that bridge collapse, and what led to that bridge collapse?
Well, the answer is no, and we were very fortunate there were no serious injuries, because in Minnesota a few years ago there was a failure as catastrophic as the one in Pittsburgh, and there were deaths there, and there were many injuries. So fortunately, nobody was really seriously hurt in this. The National Transportation Safety Board has to really finalize. Usually, in this instance, there was probably some sort of situation with maybe what they call the substructure or what have you. The bridge had been inspected. The bridges are inspected on a regular basis.
And it was designated as poor.
Yeah,
Right.
it was designated as
Yeah.
poor. It was weight restricted. So whether it was overloaded, even though it was restricted or not,
There was a bus.
we don't know.
Yeah, yeah. How long will it take them to complete the report on the bridge?
The report, probably another 2 or 3 months until they have a final determination as to exactly what happened there. But what we want to make sure that we're doing is that we're continuing to work on improving our bridges. They're very old in Pennsylvania. We have a very old system of roads here because we're an old state, and we have a lot of geography, a lot of valleys, mountains, rivers.
Ice.
Ice, yeah. I've said this on the show here earlier. We're old, cold, and we're wet,
Yeah.
and that freeze thaw isn't good for us. But of course, in the grander scheme of things, at the national level, Congress and President Biden approved this past fall the Infrastructure Investment and Jobs Act, which will bring considerable additional funding for roads and bridges in Pennsylvania. As a matter of fact, in addition to increasing what we call the core highway program funding from the national level, there's a special bridge category, and Pennsylvania did very well with that. So the good news is that we normally in the past, over these 5-year bills, had received about $9 billion total for the 5 years in federal funding, which is something that probably not everybody understands, is that the lion's share of the money for road improvements in Pennsylvania actually comes from the National Highway Trust Fund, even though we do invest a lot here at the state level as well. So, and then we got, with this bill, an additional $4 billion. So the increase is 4, and again, that's over 5. That's a total over 5 years. It's not per year. But what we have to do is we have to match. That money comes as an 80% federal, 20% state match. So we have to come up with the matching money here in Harrisburg at the state level. And we're going to be short if we don't do some things with our transportation funding.
How much do we need?
Over the 5 years, we need a total of roughly $1 billion that we don't generate right now. Now, fortunately, in my mind, there's a fairly easy solution.
There is an easy solution.
There is an easy solution. We have the second
We've
highest.
been talking about it forever.
Yes, we've been talking about it in our sleep sometimes. But yes, so we have, as everybody knows, or a lot of people know, we have the second highest gas tax in the country.
Who has the highest?
California.
Ah.
Yeah.
So they can keep #1 position.
and that tax money should go towards and is intended to go to the maintenance of roads.
Well, when voters, I would say, approved in the General Assembly along with Governor Corbett a number of years ago, approved the most recent major funding bill. The faith with taxpayers was that this additional money that we're asking you to produce or to contribute, if you will, is going to go to road and bridge improvements, and a lot of it has. But a good portion of it was siphoned off and sent to the general fund to pay for the state police operations. And that really needs to end. And we've been talking about this, you know, every time you guys are good enough to have me on the show here, we've been talking about it and probably will continue to
Has the
talk about it.
legislature approved of that? Legislature,
The, you know, governors
Goes
from
along.
both parties, back 5 administrations, along with, I'll say, willing accomplices in the General Assembly have agreed to the budgets that do that. Actually, you know, some $5 billion total. I know we're throwing a lot of billions out here today, but a lot of money since we passed that last gas tax increase. In fact, if our gas tax is 50 cents a gallon, 53 cents a gallon, about 11 cents of it is going out and over to the general fund for the state police. So we've really been working hard on getting that back. Now, a number of years ago, really under the leadership of Senator Corman, there was language to kind of slowly ease that back down. It had gotten as high as 800 million. Now we're at like 670, something like that, million. But in our mind, that number should be zero, not that much money going over to the state police. Now, in his budget proposal this year, Governor Wolf proposed to take that $670 million down to 500, which is the most drastic move we've seen from anybody, any proposal in quite some time. So to his credit, Governor Wolf has suggested a major move.
Does that get us to the
That
1
does
billion?
not get us to the one.
Okay.
It gets us close.
Doesn't-
It gets us to like
okay.
700.
Okay, 700 million,
Yeah.
okay.
So
okay.
that gets us close, and you know, our suggestion is, again, we need to take that. If we take that down, we'll have the matching money. We'll have enough money to really do a dent in our infrastructure needs.
so again, we need $1 billion to match the federal money.
Right.
So and the federal money amounts to?
Well, it would be, we're matching an additional $4 billion over a 5-year period.
Yeah.
Okay.
So it's 80-20. So
And this bridge that collapsed in Pittsburgh, as Maura said, was in poor condition. It's from some of the statistics that I have on our transportation system. At this point, we have 3,353 bridges that
That's
are in
correct.
poor condition, and 7,540 miles of highways in poor condition. Don't we have enough of a need, Bob, that we should be focusing on this?
well, certainly now there is, you know, I would say on the positive side, we had 6,000 bridges that were bad some 10 years ago, so we've cut
making
that in.
progress.
We're making
Yeah.
progress. We've cut that inventory now. Still have a long way to go, and you're right, our roadways need improvements as well. Maintaining roads and bridges in Pennsylvania is an expensive proposition. There's just no getting around it. And one of the things that affects us here in the Northeast that doesn't affect some of the states that we compete with in the South is they don't plow snow. We do. And that's, I mean, literally, we spend $500 million a year to remove snow and ice from our roads. Well, we don't get any improvement. There's no new lanes with that. There's no better pavement. Actually, there's worse pavement because then you get potholes. But you know, that's a cost that we bear here. You know, other states, New York, you know, New England, and all the other northern states.
We
too.
could probably spend days talking about the impact that these bad roads have on our cars
Right.
and the amount of money we spend. I know that there's numbers out there that quantify that, but you know, I think there's the trickle down if we don't fix the roads. And our roads will never be perfect. We'll always be, because of this freeze thaw thing, we'll always be having to repair them. And so, but my question is really, I know you're not saying don't fund the state police. It can't possibly be what you're saying.
Of course.
So,
Of course not. And the state police actually, you know, in addition to all the other, you know, drug interdiction and other things that they do, that is very important, you know, criminal investigations and all that. They do patrol the state roads as
Yes,
well. So
yeah.
there is an element of that, of roadway safety for what they do. So you're absolutely right. We're just suggesting there are other ways to fund them. Right now, we have, I understand, you know, we're projecting $1.5 billion surplus in the general fund, on top of all of the money that we are still sitting on from American Rescue Plan or COVID relief money. So we got money in the bank. You know, it's kind of like you don't need to keep taking money out of the highway fund and put it in a general fund that's got lots of money.
Yeah.
That doesn't make any sense.
Right.
Now I know that I'm not the only, we're not the only advocacy group that has a noble way to spend the taxpayers' money. But certainly, the whole concept of the user pays. One of the things that we have in Pennsylvania, how we've structured our highway funding, is our registration fees are low for cars. They're very low. A lot of states have like hundreds of dollars a year in registration fees or value-added taxes on the value of your vehicle and all that kind of stuff. We have a fairly low registration fee. And the theory there is, if I don't drive a lot, I pay a registration fee as sort of an entry into the system. So if my car sits in the driveway 5 days a week and I only drive it around town, I don't pay as much in gas tax as somebody like me that drives all over the state and 40-some thousand miles a year. And that's really how it should be. It's based on the usage of the system.
Well, are we approaching that point where there are some states who have been discussing, Bob, taxing people on the basis of their mileage, their road usage?
Excellent.
And that requires meters or some mechanism to check on everyone's mileage, and then you get charged based on your usage of the system. Are we?
Excellent point. Yes.
Are we far away from that?
We're several years away from this. It's known as the vehicle miles traveled tax or fee, and as we go more and more away from cars and trucks that consume fossil fuels, in gasoline and diesel fuel, as we look at more and more use of either natural gas or more greater use of electric-powered vehicles, they're not paying a gas tax.
Right.
So we're going to have to pivot or segue into some sort of vehicle miles travel tax. We do have a vehicle miles travel tax in Pennsylvania. It's called tolls on the Pennsylvania Turnpike, and that's literally based on the mileage. You pay more tolls from here to Philadelphia than you do from here to Gettysburg. So that technology is there. Coordinating with other states is going to be difficult, so it sort of has to be something that starts at the national level. It's 5 to 10 years away, but eventually we're gonna have to go in that direction.
Yeah. Well, there won't be any gas tax money left, so.
Right. If nobody's buying gas,
Yeah.
then, or if we're buying 50% of the gas that we are, then your revenues go down, and something has to go.
And correct me if I'm wrong, but the gas taxes dropped dramatically during COVID, so there was already a pot of money lost.
Well, what happened was, when people didn't drive during 2020, of course, when people don't drive, they don't buy gas. And when they
Right.
don't buy gas, they don't have the
revenue,
increase.
yeah.
So some of that was made up by federal funds, but you're right.
That's good.
It's still dampened a little bit.
And unfortunately, we're out of time again. Just like we're out
Goes
of
by
money
so
when
fast.
we're out of time.
Out of
We
money.
need to say goodbye, and we will see you next week again here on Behind the Headlines. Thank you, Bob.
Thank you.